this session, it is called the evolution and the development of the economic impact of sharing economy. We have learned of the different speakers before in the previous session and the keynote conference, the sharing economy or any of the other terms that we have that it is being used in the literature, like peer-to-peer economy, collaborative economy, and collaborative consumption, is a growing trend and also an unstoppable trend. So in the tourism industry, the sharing economy, we have seen with the Johanna Drake conference, for example, that they offer different ways of using the accommodation, transport, and other services that have nothing to do with the traditional mode. In fact, the new business models on P2P platforms or marketplaces, they have emerged in all tourism sector except maybe in the airline industry, okay? So we know that it is a fact that the sharing economy is here to stay and that it will bring about new business opportunities as well as new challenges, as Johanna Drake has talked about in the previous conference. In fact, that's the topic. As the scientific committee, that's the topic we have chosen for this conference because we thought it was, we had to respond to the growing importance of the sharing economy in tourism. The emergence of these platforms has led to enormous changes in terms of how we travel, in terms of how we share or have tourism experiences, and we have also learned from the previous speakers that it's not free of controversy. But also, we have learned that the business generated through these platforms offer huge potential for growth in the future. And even though there are some case studies that have been published lately, especially talking about, for example, the economic importance of the economic impact of a specific platform, P2P platform, for example, in the accommodation sector or in the restaurant sector, has in a destination, there is no overall study on the economic importance of the sharing economy in a tourism destination like the Balearic Islands, for example. So we thought as scientific committee and the organizing committee that there was a need to understand and to evaluate the economic impacts and development of the sharing economy for the sustainable development of tourism destinations. In this session, as you have learned from the program that you all have, there will be 2 speakers. I have to say, to tell you that at the beginning we had 3 speakers programmed for this session, but at the last minute one of the speakers couldn't make it, so we will have 2 speakers over here that will share with us their views on the economic importance and development of the sharing economy in tourism. Mainly we have over here on my left side, we have Johanna Drake. Johanna Drake is Principal Advisor and Chair of the Task Force on the Collaborative Economy, on the New Business Models and SMEs. She works in the DG Internal Market, Industry and SMEs in the European Commission. And we have asked her that we would like to share the European Commission view on this topic. We would like to share the focus on the economic importance, and the focus will be on the economic importance of new business models, and especially in the SMEs, because we have seen that most of the entrepreneurs that have emerged in this field are SMEs, especially SMEs. And we would like to see also about, or we would like to know about tourism projects that maybe have been funded by the European Commission, or statistics or indicators that the European Commission may have on the importance of this sharing economy in tourism. And then we have a second speaker on the more left side over there, Carl-Henrik Markusson. He's a professor, a senior researcher at the Center for Regional Tourism Research in Denmark. And in his case, we asked him to to show his view about the business model in the sharing economy, especially in Denmark, the emergence of this type of SMEs or platforms in Denmark, and what is the importance of the sharing economy in the Danish tourism industry. And I will let them speak at the beginning, and then we can have some discussion at the end, so you may ask any question at the end to any of the speakers, okay? So please, Johanna Drake.
My name is Johanna Drake. I work for the European Commission. My current role, as Professor Jakob has said, is that of chairing a task force for the Commission. It is a very interesting task force because it brings together a juncture of not only the collaborative economy or the sharing economy, but also the broader perspective of new business models and also SMEs. In fact, we were set up only on the 1st of June, just to give perspective to all of you. We have been put together since the 1st of June after some decisions had already been taken in the European Commission, and those decisions were relating to what will be probably coming out towards the end of this month, in October. And that is called the Internal Market Strategy. I would like to put this context because I think it is important for all of you to understand where I'm coming from, what's the context in the European Commission, and also what is the role of the European Commission. I will also be saying a few words about that. I have been greatly inspired by what I heard this morning, but also I was, I would say, deeply comforted by what I heard this morning because the researchers who have obviously spent a lot of time tracking the trends, monitoring, have come out with certain trends of thought that are also present in the Commission. So that is nothing new for us, which is good, although it is very good that we somehow get reaffirmed the trend of thought that's going on inside. But of course, that's not enough. We are a European institution. We are the European executive of the European Union. There are certain powers that are attributed to the European Commission. One of them is the power of initiating legislation according to the legal basis that the treaties give it. The other part is, as you know, being the watchdog of the treaties. In other words, instituting infringement proceedings if the member states do not guard, do not enforce properly the laws coming from the European Union. Now, you might say, okay, what's all this to do with the sharing economy? It has a lot to do with the sharing economy because if there is an area where the European Commission has been very active, it has been in the internal market. In other words, one of the main reasons why the European Union was created was, in fact, creating a barrier-free market. In other words, a market without obstacles between what is today 28 countries, where the free movement of services, capital, and persons, services, persons, capital, and people has to be guaranteed. That is the one side. The other side is that, of course, if these laws are not applied at the national level, at the regional level, at the local level, which is, of course, what the member states, when they signed those treaties, had actually committed to, then, of course, the European Commission also has powers. Now, of course, the big question, I'm sure, in many people's minds out there is, and I'm sure it's on your radar this morning, is what is the European Commission going to do about it? What's the European Commission going to do about the sharing economy? Is it just going to sit and watch? Is it going to declare itself as being in favor of new business models, whether they're called sharing, collaborative, the gig economy, or the economy on demand, as they call it in the US? How are we looking at it? And I have to say that this is one of the reasons why the task force is there. I also have to explain that the task force is not representing the whole of the European Commission. The European Commission is made up of different portfolios. The portfolio I come from, as I have been actually introduced, is that relating to the internal market, industry, SMEs, and entrepreneurship. So this is what we are looking at. Let's call it we're looking after the growth and the competitiveness of Europe's economy by deepening, strengthening the internal market, making it work even better for the citizens. Let's call it that that's our mission. We're looking in general at the growth. So obviously one of the questions we want to find evidence for, and I fully support what Professor Drake this morning was saying about finding the evidence, tracking the trends, learning more about what's going on, and therefore, after having learnt, trying to steer some sort of action, some sort of measures, some sort of stance or positioning. I think this is where the European Commission is at the moment. So if you are here thinking that I'm going to say the European Commission has already established a stand about this, well, actually we haven't got a stand. And the reason is that we are still, like most of what's going on around the world, perhaps with a little bit difference in America, where I think the market has matured much more, has evolved much more. The models have come out with very specific trends. There are certain reports, like the Pricewaterhouse report, which has been mentioned this morning. But I think we are also ourselves looking at evidence. On the other hand, our political masters, like my own Commissioner Bieńkowska, has been on record saying that we are very in favor of embracing the sharing economy and new business models, anything that's innovative and that's creating growth, that's creating employment. But of course, on the other hand, we have to have a bit of a balanced view. Now, of course, as I stand here today, on the 8th of October 2015, two things are happening in the background, which, of course, puts me in a position where I cannot actually say to you, you know what, this is the position of the Commission, and that's it. This is what I can communicate to you. What I can communicate to you is that there are two things ongoing. One is the consultation. It has been launched on the 24th of September. And on the 24th of September, there were some consultations launched. Actually, there were two main ones. And one was about what is called the geo-blocking and the role of platforms in the online economy. Geo-blocking, just in case you don't know what it means the discrimination sometimes suffered by consumers, whether you are sitting, let's say, in Malta, which is the country I know best, or whether you're sitting in Spain and you're ordering from a company online, and all of a sudden they say, I'm sorry, we don't deliver to Spain. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't deliver to Malta. This is the sort of geo-blocking consultation that's going on. And the reason for that is that the Commission wants to be in touch with the people who are actually going through certain ideas, certain experiences, with the intermediaries themselves, with the companies who are actually providers online, etc. The other part of the consultation going on at the moment, and it will go on, by the way, till December, is that we need to look deeply into the collaborative economy. We need to provide, as Commissioner Bieńkowska said on the 24th of September when there was the launch, we need to provide important evidence for our reflections on how to upgrade our single market to make the most of the digital economy and foster innovation and new business models such as the collaborative economy, and put an end to unjustified discrimination of consumers in the internal market. Now, of course, you might say, yes, but what are we going to get at the end of this consultation? Well, we hope to get a number of views, we hope to get a number of evidence, we hope to get a number of positions from stakeholders, from normal users like ourselves, lay citizens. We also might get views from the regional governments, from urban development agencies, for instance, who might have a view on the role of these digital platforms in the collaborative economy, and also what's the impact of rights and liabilities of existing suppliers, innovation, and consumer choice. Now, why is this happening? This is happening because the Commission wants to be more enlightened vis-à-vis two initiatives, one of which has already taken place, and that's, I'm sure you've heard about the Digital Single Market Initiative that the Commission has launched earlier this year, and the other one is about to be launched at the end of this month, and that is what is called the Internal Market Strategy. The aim behind these two is the same, And to put it in one word, as our Commissioner Bieńkowska said, we want to upgrade the internal market experience for who? Not only for the customers like us, I think also for those who want to make business across borders. And actually to make sure that the internal market is actually living up to the expectations of, I would say, yesterday's expectations of the citizen having experienced the digital economy. And this consultation, at the end of the day, in December, will provide very important input for further work or a European approach to the collaborative economy. So as such, at the moment, I cannot really talk about a European approach. All I can say is that from the DG GROW perspective, we are very, very embracing of any type of innovative business model, innovative way of growing the economy, of creating jobs. And I think it is a very good context that we're talking about tourism, because I think tourism is something that all of us as citizens, whether we're European or not, like to experience. And more we're experiencing, because I think there's more of our disposable income going towards relaxing, having a holiday, experiencing other cultures. And I think it is also appropriate, not only because it's a very personal experience, but I think because it is one of the sectors which has been the most affected by the appearance and rapid evolution of new, innovative online business models and digital distribution channels. I think probably, apart from ordering books and music, I think the next experience was booking online for our airline tickets or for our hotels or for our accommodation, etc. But in all this, we have noticed, of course, that it is consumer behavior that has changed, because not only has it been influenced by the digitalization of the industry, but I think actually it's now consumer behavior that's actually influencing the digital industry itself. Why? Because as travelers today, like we saw with the free walking tours experience, for instance, I think we are no longer satisfied with generic mass tourism offers. We are looking for authentic travel experiences, customized to our own very personal needs and those of the immediate family or friends with whom we are traveling. So this is why we have seen the phenomenon that have been very ably identified in Professor Regis' presentation this morning on rent accommodation, being invited to dine by a local, or being given free guided tours by local people who know the city, the ins and outs of the city very well. And I think we find all this very, very attractive. But also, I think there is the economic dimension of having actually an experience which is cheaper, which is more affordable, which is something that we could actually plan more rather than have nasty surprises when we go and visit anywhere that we fancy. So that is also an added benefit. So no wonder then that the sharing economy tourism models has become so popular, and also it keeps flourishing, and probably it has presented itself as a way of how we can actually track the trends faster in Europe, actually, than any other sector. The digital revolution, however, makes it also easier for all of us wanting to offer our services. And I think from the European perspective again, this is a very important point, because one of the things I said at the beginning is that 50 plus years ago, when the internal market idea was accompanying, shall we say, the very noble idea of the European Union bringing about peace and prosperity, there was the idea of the free flow of services, or the provision of services. Well, actually, one shocking figure that still is a very current figure, 2015, is that even if services make up for over 70% of the GDP in Europe, only 20% is actually cross-border. What does that mean? it means that the cross-border formula for services is still not working in practice. So in other words, the collaborative economy, the digital economy, or the digital transformation could actually be a big door opener for the floodgates of the internal market finally actually working for the provision of services. And this is why, for instance, there's a new revival of the discussion on liberal professions, recognition of diplomas across borders, freelancers, giving the services across borders, what in America is called the economy on demand. And I think this is an opportunity, I would say, for the provision of services debate to actually flourish again and to make, at the end of the day, the internal market really work for services. So there is a lot of interest and a lot of different angles coming, obviously, from the European perspective, where we are looking at what was called this morning the holistic and global view. We are sitting there, not only because we're DG Grow, but because we're DG Commission. We're at the European Commission. The European Commission, however, doesn't have only the DG Grow perspective. We're not only looking in the European Commission at the growth perspective. Europe is also known for its standards. Europe is also known for its environmental protection, for the consumer protection, for employment standards. This is what we stand for in Europe. How are we going to reconcile our thirst for making the European economy grow, for the internal market to go deeper, to go more cross-border, to give more opportunity for our service providers to actually use this opportunity, whether it's business models, sharing economy, innovative, digital, online, whatever you want to call them, and at the same time making sure that just certain standards are kept, and or that certain rights that have been very, I would say, laboriously obtained along the years in employment relationships are not all of a sudden given up on the altar of growth. I'm not implying, by the way, that we should stop, or that we could stop, even for that matter. I'm just saying we at the European Commission have the responsibility to take into account all angles. And this is why I said that we do not have, as of today, the 8th of October 2015, a position where we're saying this is the European Commission position. What we are saying is that we are embracing. We are very much in favor of all innovative business models that create growth and that create new jobs, especially, that give an opportunity for those who have been outside of the market to actually enter the market, to actually give a new floodgate for a cross-border provision of services, especially. But, of course, we cannot give up the soul that is European as well, and that is European values. For many reasons, of course, one could see the collaborative economy as being a win-win situation. But of course, from the policy makers' point of view, and where we sit as Commission vis-à-vis policymakers, where policymakers in the member states, policymakers at the regional authorities, maybe even at the city level, because at the end of the day, the sharing economy is actually quite a local, could be very much of a local incentive of creating new growth in a regional economy or in the urban development. We are seeing this, for instance, consciously designed in Amsterdam, and you know where else? In Seoul, in South Korea. We are observing these trends as well, happening elsewhere. We are thinking about, is this leading in the right direction? Is it actually creating the results one wants to see in the medium to the long term, not just for short-term benefit, but in the longer term, creating also a sense of values and protecting a level of values? Of course, I have been also in a tourism forum in Luxembourg a couple of weeks back, and there were many different perspectives offered. Like today, on the collaborative economy, and there was also Airbnb there, giving a very, I would say, illuminating presentation like we had today as well. And, I was moderating a panel there with about 7 or 8 people, and one of the conclusions that could actually be felt being put across to policymakers is, by the way, policymaker is not being the European Union at this stage. It was mostly more for the national authorities or regional authorities. It was like, isn't it time that we actually benefit from this by taking a look again at regulation and seeing whether regulation is actually well pitched at the right level? Shouldn't we both be actually looking at whether the regulation that we built over the years, 10, 20, 30 years back, is fit for purpose today and for the future, given the, I would say, new disruptive models, if you like, although the word disruptive sounds a bit negative, but this is how we technically would refer to them. Would it therefore be the time that we actually sat together and say, okay, let's have a level-headed discussion here with the regulators and say, is this regulation really addressing the concern of today or of tomorrow, or is it still addressing a concern that's too old, like 20, 30 years back, and it's not reflecting today's reality? So I think these are questions that were aptly presented also this morning, but I have to say that as policymakers in the European Commission, this is also what we're looking at. I'm sure that in the meantime, you have been very taken over by a lot of information going on about Uber, for instance. And the European Commission, in a way, is there also implicated. Why? Because as the transport sector is also a regulated sector, also because it's sectorally regulated, there are certain rules that need to be applied. Now, of course, we are interested as Commission to see that our rules that come from the European Union are applied, but of course this doesn't stop the Member States having their own rules where it matters to them, and as long as it doesn't break the European internal market rules. Now, of course, you have also heard about how different cities, all you have to do is just Google Uber and see how the different cities have been dealing with Uber from a different perspective. And of course, us as European Commission have the role also to watch and track this. At the same time, we know that the courts in Barcelona, the courts in Berlin, the courts in London, the courts in France have every right under their European standing, because they are part of this European I would say, chain of the judicial system, have every right also to refer a case to the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg. So, of course, there you have the situation where how are we going to look at these matters? Is it just an application of a rule? Of course, if it's an application of a rule and it's a court case, we have to strictly apply the rule, and this is what we have to do. So we cannot have a general rule saying, Barcelona is doing a good thing while Paris is not. We can't say this sort of thing. But we do have a responsibility, and this is why I come to the internal market strategy coming out, as I said, later on this month in October. So I would say, watch this space if you are looking at what's happening. Where the European Commission will say and pronounce itself partly in this strategy on the collaborative economy. I cannot divulge, of course, what will be said there, but I suppose that some of it will have to do about what guidance the European Commission will give in the application of the internal market rules. In other words, since these are European rules, the European Commission feels that it has the duty and the responsibility to guide member states in the application of these rules when they come to regulate at the city level, at the national level, or the regional level. So, however, as I say, I cannot comment on this. It is early days. This still has to be launched later on this month. I'm just touching on these different points because, of course, sitting here as Johanna Drake coming from the European Commission, DG GROW, you might assume, this is the Commission speaking. No, I'm speaking in terms of what we are dealing with in the task force and what we are dealing with from the DG Grow point of view. But at the same time, I'm giving you the perspective of what the European Commission is dealing with when it comes to the collaborative economy. In the task force, you might say, okay, so what are you doing in the task force? Since, there's this consultation which is already out, the Commission wants to know more from the players in the market, wants to get feedback. At the same time, there is an internal market strategy aimed overall to ensure a better enforcement of the internal market rules and of having a better impact on the creation of jobs and growth in Europe. But at the same time, there's a task force. Now, the task force is in itself, it has been set with a mandate to provide materials, reflection, evidence, and possibly recommendations, plus reaching out to stakeholders, plus, like I'm doing today, presenting the Commission's perspective on the collaborative economy, and to see how we can position ourselves better in order to make this work without forgetting the balanced approach that I mentioned earlier in my speech. And that is not forgetting what we stand for in terms of values, in terms of standards, in terms of certain thresholds below which we can go. So we will continue, of course, to work with all the interested stakeholders on the subject of sharing economy and digitalization, I would say, in general. And rest assured that we shall strive for balance. I think this is where the Commission is well placed to do a good job, because we are actually seeing the interests of all players, and we need to ensure that they are all equally taken into account in future policy initiatives. We don't want to micromanage member states, we don't want to micromanage regions, but we want to remind everyone that we are part of the internal market, which is actually entrenched in the treaties, which has been very vastly legislated upon, which, yes, agreed, might need to be brushed up in order to be made fit for purpose. But overall, we want to keep on creating jobs and growth, and we owe this to our European citizens of today and mostly of tomorrow. We want to keep on encouraging the opportunities from new business models. We don't want to appear that we're trying to stifle this growth. We are sympathetic and supportive to innovation and entrepreneurship. But we have to recognize that the sharing economy has a direct impact on the quality of the jobs as well, on the distributional effects and general traditional business environment of various sectors. We want the best economic effects to happen in European societies. And of course, we should not forget European standards and values in doing so. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Johanna Drake. And now Professor Karl-Henrik Markussen is going to give a talk. Thanks.